Hey, it's Anna Marie from ERA in Anniston, Alabama. Let's talk refinance and just making sure that you are thinking about, as a homeowner, all of the what all happens when you decide to refinance. Not just the short-term, immediate returns, a lower payment, but some of the long-term effects also of when you decide to refinance. Just so you know that you have all your information. So that you can make the best decision for you and your family. This couple I was talking to yesterday had called me about listing their house. They had bought it back in 2008, had a 6.5% interest rate. They decided to refinance 6 months ago, and they got an interest rate it's a little under 4. So they were going to save about $150 a month on their monthly payment. Well, here we are 6 months later. The other thing is they were able to roll in all their closing costs on their refinance, so they didn't have to come out of pocket with any money. They rolled in about $4,000 worth of closing cost. So here we are 6 months later, we're looking at selling, and when they rolled in those closing costs, they went from owing $143,000 to owing $147,000 on the house. So if we were, and what I was explaining to them is that if we get an offer today on the house, that by them refinancing and rolling in those closing costs, instead of them breaking even and getting $143,000, now they're going to have to bring that $4,000 to the table. They're pulling out they've already pulled out that equity when they did their refinance. And, granted, they were able to save $150 for 6 months. So what's that, $1,000? They were able to save that $1,000. They didn't think through that process of, this is what we're rolling in, and if we decide to sell, we need to make sure we're going to stay in this house long enough to recoup those closing costs. So let's just talk about this specific example. If it took them 6 months to get to that $1,000, to recoup that $4,000 in closing costs, they were going to need to stay in that house for 6 months, a year and a half. They would already need to stay in that house for 2 years to recoup that amount, or to recoup that $4,000 and or pay down their balance back down to where it was, so they wouldn't have to come to the table with any money. Our market here in East Central Alabama, we're not seeing. We're at a place where we're seeing some appreciation, but you're not going to see enough in 2 years, regardless of wherever you live, to make up for those closing costs. So I did want to make sure that's an aspect that you look at if you decide to refinance your house. How much money you're going to save a month, and what those closing costs are, and then you figure out how many months that is that you would need to stay in your house to not lose any of that money. I hope this makes sense, because these people I was working with, and this isn't the first couple this year that we had to have this conversation, and they were surprised and they didn't realize it, and anyway, they wound up having to bring money to closing because they had already pulled out that equity for their refinance. So anyway, if you have any questions about this, email me, or you can always leave a message below. I'm always here to help. You and your family are the only ones who can make the best decision about whether now is the time to refinance or not. There are some people out there that you need the help right now, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just making sure you know what's going to happen on the back end too, I think is a wise and a smart decision as a homeowner, and especially on this biggest investment in your life. So again, if you have any questions, leave a message below, or you can always email me, Anna-Marie at era-king.com.